I'm Josh and I'm a designer.
And I'm NJ and I'm the narrative and audio director on Conway Disappearance at Dahlia View. Disappearance at Dahlia View is set in 1954 in our fictional town of Riverport in England. And Dahlia View itself is a courtyard with a small community of people living within it. And the game follows a retired private investigator called Robert Conway, and he's investigating his neighbours because he believes that one of them may have kidnapped an 8-year-old girl called Charlotte May. And the setup to this scene is that he's had a tip-off that his neighbours are acting suspiciously, and this is him passively observing, trying to find anything that might be off with his neighbours. And the McKees, which is the level we're about to show you, they're the first on his list.
I've been sitting watching my neighbours on and off for hours, but I've seen nothing of any use for my evidence board. Tony Morgan suggested that the McKees were acting strangely around Charlotte May. I heard Theodore return home earlier this evening, but didn't manage to get a glimpse. Charlotte May is counting on me to find her, but so far I've drawn a blank. Perhaps the McKees are innocent. Only time will tell. Theodore looks unhappy about it.
Currently, what Josh is playing through, he's actually clicking the core narrative path of this observation, but there are other things going on. There are other neighbours in the scene doing other things, and in the background, if you watch cars do pass and people walk past and there are lives going on outside Dahlia View. There's an eviction notice on the door up top because some people haven't paid their rent, and one of the characters is the landlord, and these things happen, and we can see the people putting flowers on Tony Morgan's doorstep because his daughter's gone missing, and some of these things are clickable on, and there's extra just narrative to find around the world.
Annabelle has seen something just out of my view. Whatever it is, she's horrified by it.
Yeah, it really helps with a player, especially when they're in the scene. Not only can they follow the critical path, but in some of those moments where there is a character off screen and they've both gone off screen, there is still something of interest for the player to be looking for. And like you say, just in terms of narrative, it all builds towards the scene that's playing out or the scene that has played out.
Annabelle is back at the door.
Okay, hurry. Go.
Some of the character dynamics coming through here as well. Annabelle clearly in charge, at least in her own mind, making Theo do whatever it is she's asked him to do, and being quite quick to manipulate people around her.
Lovely evening.
Yes, I suppose so. Please, if you don't mind, I have something...
It's just also sad, isn't it?
Please.
And Tony Morgan is the father of the missing girl who was attacked and knocked out, and then she was taken.
If there's anything I can do, you won't
Tony,
hesitate
look
to
at
ask.
Theodore. Ask him what's wrapped in that rug.
This is Conway's flat, and we thought this was an important hub to have within the world because, one, I mean, if the window space itself, it just gives you a good view of the fictional world that we've built, which is called Riverport, and it really helps to cement where Dahlia View is as a little courtyard, and to show you that that when somebody goes missing, there's this grander search going on, and you have an idea of this grander search. But Conway is obsessed and focused on a tiny little piece of information that he has, and he believes it's somebody within Dahlia View. And his journey, obviously, is to figure out whether he's right or wrong. but the grander, larger world that we're trying to create was very important to see.
And there's lots of things for the player to do as well within this apartment flat that they can experience over several levels. So it is something that, you know, it's not a one and done. You do have the chance to explore, and you do have the chance to see not only what Conway's doing, but what Conway might have done in the past as well. So,
and this is Conway's evidence room. So all he has is the pictures of his neighbours, picture of Charlotte May, a brooch that he found at the crime scene that's there on his desk as this reminder that this girl needs finding.
It's up to the player to find the evidence in order to populate their evidence board. So that is something that hopefully excites the players to start to see that as that builds. Because like we were saying about being able to come back to Conway's apartment and reflect, each time you come back to this apartment, hopefully you start to see that more and more on this evidence board, and it really starts to expand.
I wonder if there's anything left to find at all. What if I'm too late? Bleach. The McKees have been busy.
So throughout the levels, we do have this, I guess, nice blend of gameplay and cinematics to really help kind of tie the two together. And in this example, Conway is using, like you said, his silver tongue to try and charm his way into the McKees' apartment.
I'm sorry, how is it I can help, Mr. Conway?
Well, it's all a bit sensitive, I'm afraid. I wondered if I might...
And he's quite willing to lie to people as well if it helps him get that extra foot, in the door.
Mrs. McKee, Annabelle, I'd rather not state my purpose out here in the hallway where any one of your neighbors might be listening. Wouldn't you agree?
Of course. Why don't you step inside for a moment?
Excellent idea. I promise not to take up too much of your time. I'm sure you have your hands full.
So, what's the purpose of all this, Mr. Conway? I hope it's not about what we... Well, why don't you get to it?
Of course. Well, it's actually quite simple. I'm sure you've heard that I was once a private investigator. Well, nonetheless, Mr. Morgan has asked me if I would look into everyone who knew Charlotte May.
I see. And so you've come to look at us?
Look, let me be straight. I've been an investigator my entire life, and I have a sense about people, you might say.
Robert has managed to talk his way into the house. He's managed to calm Annabelle down and, make her believe that, I don't think you have anything to do with this. I'm just here asking a couple of questions. And the second she agrees, well, okay, just a couple of questions, Robert now goes, I'll stop you there. Can I just use your toilet? And now he's using that, yes, we can quickly talk, and stretching it out. And, he's going to investigate the bathroom. Do they have anything to hide in here? Have they moved anything? Where did that rug come from that I saw them carry out? Is there any evidence? And that's very much part of Robert's character, is trying to just pull at people and just get that little bit extra. And in some characters, it works very well. And in some characters, it might not work at all. And it's, he doesn't necessarily have like a sharp scalpel. He's more like a blunt hammer. And, sometimes it works very well. Sometimes it gets him in trouble. But that's his method.
If you don't feel it appropriate, then best not to bother him.
Thank you.
I was hoping to clear it all up today, you see. I'd hate to have to bother you tomorrow or the day after, or even the day after that. It's not in my character to be a nuisance. However, I did promise Mr. Morgan. Perhaps I'll return later on.
Wait. If it's not going to take too long, I could fetch him now, and we could resolve the matter.
Mrs. McKee, if you would do that for me, it would put Mr. Morgan's mind at ease, I'm sure of it.
Christ. Okay, well, I think it's best you come with me.
I fear I'd only slow you down. The stairs, you see. No, I'll wait here for you.
Fine, just wait here.
And Robert's not above using his wheelchair as a a bargaining chip to get what he wants. For him, finding this little missing girl is above all else.
It's moving. Almost there. Well, that was easier than I thought.
So as the player takes or finds things that could be of potential use, that is added to the player's inventory so that they can then use that within the environment to see if it could progress them further or advance something that they might be stuck behind. So in this case, we found the key, we can go into our inventory and we can now get into the pantry.
Theo's room, no doubt.
You can tell the rooms that have her influence on it, and you can tell the rooms that have Theo's influence on it. So Theo basically, gets to have this room however he wants, and this is his space for expression. And everything within this space is his, and through exploring the space, you're exploring him as a character.
No, my baby don't care for me, just because she says she do. If my baby really cared for me, she wouldn't leave me feeling blue.
Theo, where's the pencil gone?
Annabelle, you can't hear I'm recording.
Sorry, I don't know the difference, you know that.
Well, check next time.
Robert almost takes notes as we're playing through the game of anything that is important, and they go into Robert's notepad. So we do keep track of our objectives and anything that might be of interest. So for instance, in that vinyl record, it was mentioned that there was a pencil left in the living room, and that could be of importance for something within this environment.
So anybody who's ever wanted to be a detective of any kind, when they see a notepad that's next to a phone that says, I wonder what was last written on here, and also knows that there's a pencil in the world.
And as we've done this, we've kind of unlocked a gameplay interaction, so we can comment on certain things of interest. So here we're commenting on the cello case code, and because we've commented it, that now goes into our notepad, so we don't have to keep kind of rolling back to search for that number. It's just in our notepad, so we can use that later if we find it.
Bingo. Theo has a sister back home somewhere. Something's blocking these keys from the other side. Locked. How does one open a piano front? Now, what do you know?
The space is free for the player to explore and interact with, and I think it's very important for us. You could tell someone to go and play the keys, but then they don't feel like they found it, and we want the origin of somebody's interest to be curiosity. We're not telling the player what's relevant. It's up to them to find out. They're the investigator. £45.
If I were a lesser man, I'd take it and live comfortably for the rest of the year.
We don't just place a pencil on a table, and the pencil was found in a diary, and the diary belongs to Annabelle. And it's that further example of how everything points inwards, everything has a meaning and a place and belongs to somebody.
Yeah, and even what's written on the diary means something to the greater world. And we spoke briefly about the notepad, but we also have like character bios inside of the notepad. So things that you find within the world could have an impact on not only the characters that you're looking at in that level, but could be across Dahlia View and other characters that you might see in this space.
So the thing that's interesting is that Conway doesn't know what's important in the world. So a high level of interactivity is really important, because if you could only interact with the things that are relevant, then the game's going to be pretty self-explanatory. So just Theo having a music room for a start, lends itself to high interactivity. So you can pick up the drum, you can even play it, and pop it down, and everything around you, interact with everything. Cello bow might be innocent, might have a secondary use. Same for this statue, you don't know what's important until you pick it up and rotate it and look at these items.
So through the apartment, we've kind of rooted in all the main spaces. We've been into the pantry, we've been in the kitchen, we've been into Theo's music room, we've been into the living room, and we've been into the bathroom. So there's kind of one area that's left, and that area was locked, but we now have access to those keys thanks to Annabelle's sister dropping them off. And what we have here is kind of just a small example of, it's not a quick time event, but it's an interaction within the game. So we have lots of different interactions just to kind of break up that pace and break up that gameplay. So the first one that we saw was that we had to use Conway and Conway's wheelchair as a physical interaction to knock that key down. And whereas this one, we've kind of retrieved a set of keys. So now the player can try to see which key is the correct one. So upon trying to get into that space, unfortunately Conway's not able to gain access and kind of has to turn focus back to the returning of the McKees. Yeah,
and it's important to note, obviously, with this gameplay segment that we're showing people, we're showing the core interactivity and gameplay of a sneaking space around somebody's house, around somebody's home, around their private space. When the McKees return, the goal of them returning was that they could maybe have a quick conversation with Robert, and he could ask, where were you the night that Charlotte May disappeared? What were you doing? Did you see anything? Did you hear anything? And they will go into a statement, and there'll be a conversation segment where Robert gets to ask questions. But now Robert gets to ask questions armed with the fact, well, why was there money in the piano? And maybe he can't come out and say that, why was the money in your piano? But he could probe, how much money do you make? And, where do you make your money? He found a tram ticket. Where were you on the 22nd? Oh, I was here. Really? I was out with a friend. I went by tram. It's oh, okay. Well, which tram station? We have information, and we can pull them up on lies, and through the dialogue options that come up, we can control what we learn during that conversation about those people. Try to decide whether we like them, whether they like Conway, whether they were involved, whether we think they're innocent, whether that changes later on when we learn something else. It is very much a character study, and everything that we've just done in the level really kind of comes to a head in the conversation. Yes. And then armed with the conversation, the observation and the sneaking, we take all of that and we bundle it up, and then we take that to evidence review, and it's now down to Conway, what can I piece through here? Exactly, what's left on my evidence board, and what do I think about this level? How does my investigation lead me through the game? How does it affect me? What's the consequence of my being here and leaving all of that mess, and then knowing that everything within the game ties into the story?
Characters' opinions change on Conway being in their space and what he's done in that space. So
exactly.
That is our demo for Conway.
It is. There's so much more to see. We hope you enjoyed it.